This is the Community Preservation Committee meeting on Tuesday, October 14th, and this meeting is being recorded. And I'm going to start with a quick roll call. We've got Nancy,
Nancy Nelson, present.
and you're from the Historical Commission, and
The
Ed.
Historical Commission, yes.
Edward Larner, I represent the housing.
Sorry.
That's okay, we're all exhausted. And Bill?
Bill Cremeza, representing Natural Resources.
Great. Diane?
Diane Proctor, Select Board appointee.
Thank you. Jeff?
Jeff Collins, Select Board appointee.
Ooh, Jeff, there is a delay on your video, I think. You're
Jeff,
having
yeah,
Wi-Fi
you
problems
talked
again?
without moving your lips, Jeff. So
How does
you'll
he
have
do
to explain
that?
that.
Sorry, I have wonky Wi-Fi. Well, is the audio okay?
Yes, it is. So we're good.
We see a lot of gestures.
That's right. We got Andrew.
Andrew Boardman, Planning Board.
Thank you, Andrew. And I'm Eve Eisenberg, Select Board appointee, and I'm still expecting Matt and Burton to show up at some point. Okay, so on our agenda, I want to dive right into our presentations, and the first presentation is with Elizabeth Hughes. Hi, Elizabeth. Are you there?
No, the Conservation Fund, I thought.
It's not the Assabet River pedestrian bridge going first?
I don't
No,
know.
I think it says an extension request for the Warner's Pond boat launch improvements.
Oh, I must have the
What?
wrong agenda. I'm gonna go.
Oh, I have
was
for the 14th, and it says the Conservation Fund.
Yeah, that would be, that's once we got going, but the second item, I think, at least on my agenda, right or wrong though,
Same.
maybe,
What's
Same.
your second item?
says extension request for 619 Warner's Pond boat launch improvements, Town of
Oh,
Concord.
boy.
Natural Resource.
Okay, I'm looking at the agenda that was posted online, and it
Me
does
too.
say the Conservation Fund is first, and I apologize. I must have printed out a different.
No,
No,
it is
no,
first,
it's the-
that there's something before it on the agenda.
Oh,
The Conservation Fund's the first of
you
number
are
3.
so right, Diane. Thank you.
Okay,
Extension request.
I mean, it's not a question of being right or wrong. It's just what it says on the document, so.
Well,
Okay. I'm going to
Well-
print this out for myself. And I'm going to, in either case, I think this is the Delia show, right?
well,
Okay. The extension
Yeah.
request?
I was one of the people that was going to speak about the Conservation Fund.
Okay, but on our agenda now, there is a new item right under call to order called extension request for 619, which I believe is that the 2021 dredging, Warner's Pond dredging.
Oh, I do have that. Yep.
Okay, so now that we're all on the same page, and I'll do a better job of making sure that everyone gets the correct agenda. Thank you, sweetheart. And Delia, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Eve. My name is Delia Kay. I'm the Natural Resources Director for the town, and I'm just going to start a very brief slideshow with a request for extension for a previously approved CPA application. It was number 6-19. This is the boat launch at Warner's Pond, and I will just give you a very brief background on this. 2020 annual town meeting approved $500,000 in CPA funds to be used towards dredging of Warner's Pond and access improvements at the Commonwealth Ave boat launch. The boat launch improvements were $220,000. And I'm here to request that this funding be extended, including a 20% contingency. The dredging and boat launch improvements project was put out to bid in 2022. Some of you will recall. And one very high bid was received, more than 3 times the $3 million that had been allocated from CPA and capital funds. And in early 2024, the Natural Resources Commission established a task force, the Warner's Pond Task Force, to review prior work, explore feasible options to pond management, and recommend a course of action to the NRC. And one of the task force recommendations was to pursue improvements to the boat launch and parking area at the Commonwealth Ave access. And so currently the NRC is in the process of developing a charge for a new Warner's Pond Management Committee. And it is, I'm here tonight because we're anticipating the likelihood that this committee will pursue boat launch improvements. And I'd like to request that CPC extend that portion of the prior approved CPA project for boat launch improvements. And those boat launch improvements, oh my God, that's a terrible image.
Wow.
I'm so sorry, that's very blurry and I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it will resolve. But it is, so this is, Commonwealth Ave is here, Warner's Pond is here. This is the boat launch. And the boat launch improvements would essentially, delineate parking spaces. It would do invasive species removal. There would be stormwater management improvements. There would be pull-offs. This would be a 10 to 15 foot wide paved access. We would improve this ability to get into Warner's Pond. And the Friends of Warner's Pond have identified additional improvements that we would like to consider incorporating into this design. And so this request is for, it's a $264,000 request to extend to account for design changes and increased construction.
Okay. Okay, thanks. And I think, if you don't mind, I think we will pile that on with the other things we're going to be discussing on November 4th, instead of tackling any kind of discussion about it today. Unless anyone else has, if anybody has a questions, kind of came up a little bit subtly on some of us. So if anyone has a question, Diane.
Hi, Julia, I have a couple questions. Could you just repeat the dates? We originally gave you the money for this in 2022, did you say?
So there were 3 funding appropriations.
I know, that's what I'm trying to figure out to which one this is attached. Okay.
So I can send this to the committee. And I'm just looking in my many open applications. I apologize. Here it is. So there were, are you seeing a spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the top 3 are the funding appropriations for CPA funding. There was $500,000. Funding year was 2021. The following year, $250,000 from CPA funds, and in 2024, $550,000 towards restoration. So all of the CPA funds, there was a total of 1.3 million that was allocated for CPA and 1.75 in capital. And so these are the different accounts. So there were 3 years, Diane, that there were funding appropriations. The one that I'm requesting the extension from is this 6-19, which was the $500,000 that was it included the boat launch improvements.
Okay, and so that was in 2021, right?
Fine.
So it was the way Anne is doing a much more clear job of identifying how funding is appropriated. The application for this was a 2019 application, which if I'm correct, it was a 2020 town meeting authorization, which meant it was a FY21 appropriation.
Okay, and I'm sorry to be, I'm just trying to understand one more thing. So it's 264,000 of the 496,000 balance that's left over. Is that what you're asking for?
That's right.
Okay. Well, I think we all will need time to digest this, but so saving it for the next one. And my next question is, does this need to go then as part of the whole presentation to the town of the CPC article? And I don't know if Anne is still with us, but I would love to know whether it sounds to me like this might require, I just don't know.
I don't think an extension request for something that was described within the application would need a town meeting vote because it's already in the application.
So even though it's 6 years old? It would not require that.
You've been receiving updates annually and, whenever you've requested them, so I don't think it
That-
hasn't been an issue with any other project, so.
Sorry, that goes to my question, where the extension request is actually larger than the amount that was allocated towards this part of the project before. Does that require going towards town meeting? Because it asked for a contingency that wasn't allocated within the original application.
The way, I mean, in other grants that I've received, not CPC, but others, the total amount, there's some flexibility. The grant is for the total amount. And when you submit the grant application, you provide a general budget. But within that, as long as you communicate to the granting agency, and that the granting agency agrees that the budget can be shifted around, I don't see any reason why it would need to go to town meeting, but we could check that with town council.
And this is the first time I believe that an extension has been requested for this particular project? I mean, from that particular application?
Yes, but
That's correct. I mean, the CPC has not been requesting extension requests until this year.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we brought up in August, Diane, that Anne had come up with a new extension request language in order to provide a
Right.
tiny bit more oversight of our committee of the projects that were a bit overdue in some of their funding. So the very first one we got, I think, Anne, was from Delia. And also, Delia, I just read 619 and you haven't described anything different than what was already in there. I think that even the blurry map comes from that application as well. So it's in our records on the website in the fiscal year 2019.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jeff?
Thanks, Eve. And thanks, Celia. You mentioned towards the end there that folks had identified some additional enhancements possible, thinking of the language of the initial application, et cetera, et cetera. Can you describe those additional enhancements?
Well, there are some that I think are feasible and some that may be more maybe appropriate at Row. So some of the additional improvements that have been suggested include doing a dock out into the ponds and doing an accessible access similar to what they have in Maynard, if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah.
Where it's a canoe and kayak launch apparatus that allows accessible entrance into the pond. That I think is feasible. There's a boat washing station, which I don't think would be feasible here because it's very challenging to construct a washing station that is very close to the pond because you're basically washing the invasives right back into the
Right.
but I think there's a lot of good ideas that the Borders Ponds, Friends of Borders Pond have been thinking about, and I think we want to have somebody revisit this plan and see if we can improve it via a better approach to the access improvements.
Great, thank you. Eve, just a general comment, and I'd be prepared to say more on the fourth, but I was on the Warner's Pond Task Force, ably led by Bill, co-led by Bill and Christine Denaro, who's here as a member of the public, and Paul Bowen was on the call, was on it, and ably supported by Delia. And one of the points of the final recommendation there was any improvements that Commonwealth Ave not preclude any future outcome of decision-making around the pond, whether the pond stays, if management efforts are successful, or if the dam is removed someday and the river is restored, kind of rewilded. So I'd be sensitive to investments at this location precluding some future outcome. And that was the specific recommendation of the Warner's Pond Task Force to make any investments that could accommodate any future. So as Delia said, the idea of like a dock capacity actually would align. So anyways, that's a general comment, and I'd be happy to say more.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I would like to hear more later. I just have one stupid question from somebody who's not on this task force is if the river were to return, would it shift away from the dock that you then invested in? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I mean, the anticipated flow direction is anticipated to flow past the Commonwealth boat launch, but it would likely be further from the shore than it is now.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Does anybody else on the committee? I feel like I saw another hand up a minute ago. What happened? Andrew, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, no, I was just, I was wondering if there was a comment related to where the advisory committee didn't actually make a recommendation, and the potential for stranded investment, where no matter what happens, whether there's intervention, dredging, or whatever, Giroux Park will have access to the pond, whereas this location may not, and it might actually open up into will become a swamp. So my question was about that. I don't think that the task force actually determined what would happen or made a recommendation about that. It was just not to preclude it, but not precluding it doesn't mean there isn't a robust discussion to be had around what is an appropriate investment at that location. And then I just wasn't sure based on my reading.
Okay. Bill, you were on this task force too. Do you want to?
Yeah, I do. I do. And I want to speak even to what Andrew had said. Andrew, actually, we were very much aware of wanting to put access on Commonwealth Avenue. And we were, and to Jeff's point, the notion was, regardless of whether it's a free-flowing stream or a pond, we wanted that access to be enhanced. And that wasn't there. And in the plans that I see developing presently or in the future, all have that in mind. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. And we really don't know yet what will happen with the Giroux property, even though we do think there'll be something there. This will also, this is the main place where the Scouts want to reach their island, is through that Commonwealth Avenue site, not through the Giroux property. It's too difficult to get the boats, their equipment down close to the pond from Giroux. This will be their main spot in reaching the island.
Has the BSA showed any interest in paying for that or no?
We haven't asked the BSA to pay for it, Andrew.
Okay, Jeff, you put your hand down, so I assume that was your comment as well. And I just have one quick question. The remaining $233 some thousand out of 619 then could be returned to the CPC in the form of a conservation reserve or something like that. That would be acceptable. Okay. All right. So outside of the committee, we've got Paul, and every time I see your face, Paul, I think that you're on our committee again.
We're missing him.
I know the good old days, huh? Yeah, there I am. Just a quick question, Delia. Is ADA accessibility either required or desirable for new construction here?
Thanks for bringing that up, Paul. I actually am not sure if it's required. I think for less than 7 parking spaces, it's not, but I would have to double check that. But it is anticipated, it is included in the plan, that one of the spaces would be a handicap accessible, and a second space would be a van accessible space. So it would be blocked, 2 spaces would be blocked off for handicap parking.
I'm actually talking about accessibility to the pond. I know.
That's a super interesting question, and I don't have an answer. I'd have to look into that and get back to you. I do not believe it's required, but it is something that, you know, we would certainly want to work towards. And so the Friends of Warner's Pond approach to have that accessible, you know, launch from a dock, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just bring that up because the Giroux boat launch CPC application did have ADA accessibility. So, and whether it was required or desirable, we kind of opted on the desirability end of it. But please look into that. That's all I have, Eve.
Okay, thanks. Christine Denaro?
Yes, hi. I was on the Warner's Pond Task Force, and I just wanted to reiterate the fact that we did all agree that moving forward, that this boat launch would be something that we would want to continue with. Plus the fact this is really the only accessible area, the only boat launch for Warner's Pond. There currently is no access to the water from Giroux Park at this point. There is access from Warner's Pond, and I think it would be to our advantage to create this and make this a better spot so that we can launch boats there in an easy and more feasible manner. So I think that is important. It's already there, and if we were to improve it, that would be a huge opportunity for us. So
Okay,
thank you.
great. Thank you very much for speaking out and for letting us know your thoughts on that, and for being on the task force too. Thank you for volunteering. I appreciate that anyway. Okay, I'm going to consider that wrapped up, and maybe we could move on to the TM 2604, the Conservation Fund application with Delia.
Sure.
No. Are you seeing the Conservation Fund CPA application?
We're seeing your calendar.
Calendar.
All right.
What is this about? What is this about going to Bermuda? Is that what it said on your calendar?
I don't know why my default is 12 a.m. on my calendar. Let me try that again. Are you seeing a Conservation Fund CPA?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. I'm gonna start that now.
That looks like Warner's Pond again, though.
It's the same application. I did them together. So hopefully you'll see this title page for his Conservation Fund application.
Yes.
You're a go.
Great. So this request for funding for Conservation Fund is to allow the Natural Resources Commission to move quickly on purchasing priority conservation parcels. The Open Space and Recreation Plan identifies an open space framework that includes 9 natural areas, 5 agricultural areas, 3 wildlife and water protection corridors, and 9 built areas, and that's shown on the graphic that you're looking at now. And acquisitions using this conservation fund would be limited to those areas identified in the open space framework as priority parcels. Some land acquisitions need to move quickly. We were very fortunate with the Assabet River Bluff acquisition that the Di Giovanni family was willing to work with town meeting schedule, and they postponed the acquisition for at least a year. Other landowners may not be as amenable, and if high biodiversity land is lost to development, the chance to preserve it is likely lost forever. This request is similar to what other communities, including Lincoln, Harvard, Broughton, and Duxbury have had in place for many years, and I am excited for the opportunity for Concord to have the same opportunity.
Oh, is that it, Delia?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank
Great.
you. This application was assigned to Jeff and Nancy and Andrew. And so Andrew's got his hand up. I'll let you get started.
Yeah, hi. My question was, so this is actually, and I felt like I had to do some homework to make sure this was correct. This is actually a chapter 40, section 86 town appropriated conservation fund. Is that correct?
So
That-
it is a chapter 40, section 8C.
Oh,
That
I'm sorry, that's my bad math, my bad handwriting.
That's okay, and I'm sorry I was not more clear in the application. Chapter 40, Section 8C is the Conservation Commission Act. And that act authorizes the Conservation Commission which in Concord is the Natural Resources Commission to acquire land. That act was authorized in 1957. Concord established the Natural Resources Commission in 1959. And most acquisitions, well, all acquisitions of town land, conservation land have gone through a process of going through a town meeting approval process.
Right, but it does permit the creation of this fund, which is administered by the Natural Resource Commission or the Conservation Commission. It can also accept donations, right? So what I'm trying to get at is this would actually align with the process that's set forth in Massachusetts law. So you would have to spend it in how it's done, a public notice meeting and all of that stuff that's set along with it. And it would be administered by the town treasurer, I think, is how it works. I'm just trying to make 100% sure I understand the mechanism, because it wasn't really explained in the application.
There are two laws that come into play here. One is the Conservation Commission Act, which enables the NRC to acquire land. And the second is the CPA legislation, which enables the CPC to recommend to town meeting that this is an appropriate use of monies to be appropriated towards this purpose. And yes, it would have to go through a public hearing process. And I don't see that the NRC is going to be moving outside of, garnering support, select board support, other committee support for land acquisitions. It's just that the town meeting schedule can be very, very challenging.
Right. I was more trying to because the way the application is written, it just makes it sound like give us a pot of money. But there's actually a mechanism in the law that says we are legally entitled to establish a conservation fund with appropriations from the town, and we'd like to fund it using CPA, which all seems to line up. I just wasn't sure, because the application was very high level. So I just wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly and that there were more controls than just what was in the application. That's all.
Okay, thank you for getting down to the brass tacks. How about you, Jeff? You've got your hand up next on my screen.
Thanks, Eve. Thanks, Delia. So Delia, I'm assuming we have in town some Chapter 61 land. Can you describe for us briefly, maybe play out why a fund like this is important, given the right of first refusal right that a town has over parcels that are in Chapter 61 and how that timeline works?
Could you define Chapter 61 for those of us who do not have that background? As you answer this question, Delia, thank you.
So Chapter 61 is a state tax abatement program. It's a voluntary program that a landowner can enter into to receive a reduced tax rate. There are 3 chapters to the program, and Chapter 61A is an agricultural tax program, and the other 2, I always get them wrong. So Chapter 61, I believe, is recreation, and Chapter 61B is forestry. And those 2 might be reversed, but it's basically if you have land that qualifies for those programs, you can enter into the program and receive a very reduced tax rate. And if a parcel that is in chapter land, as we call it, comes onto the market, and an offer is received, so it goes for sale, or there is a change in use out of agriculture, recreation, or forestry, the town has what is called a first right of refusal on a bona fide offer on the land. So the property goes on the market, somebody makes an offer on the land, and the town has the ability to purchase that land or assign that right of first refusal to a land trust or another entity that can preserve it for the same purposes that the town would, and it's 120 days. The planning board, the assessors, and the NRC all make recommendations to the select board on whether or not that land is valuable for the town to acquire for the different purposes that each of those boards review land acquisitions. So it's a challenging, that's a 4-month turnaround. So if a land chapter is put up for sale and the town doesn't have money to buy it, it can be lost. So that's kind of that process. That's another reason that the land fund would be a valuable purpose. And the other thing, a lot of the grants that we obtain for conservation land acquisitions, we get federal land and water conservation funds grants, we get state lands. I remember what the acronym for land grants is, but anyway, there's a number of grants, state, federal, and some local for land acquisition that require a match. And this land fund would provide that match that would be viewed very favorably, and in many cases is
Right.
by state and federal grant.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
Nancy, oh,
Isn't there a minimum, isn't there a minimum acreage for chapter 61 that makes it hard for smaller pieces that might be critical? It's my recommendation, I'm not sure, or recollection.
I'm sorry. So for agricultural lands, the minimum acreage is 5 acres.
Yeah, that sounds right.
In chapter land for agriculture, you have to have 5 acres of land, and you have to make a $500 profit, which is pretty low. I don't think that's changed in a long time, but the acreage is, it's 5
Yeah.
acres.
Okay.
Nancy, do you have other questions though too?
I do. What is is there a monetary goal for the conservation fund? Because $500,000 might not be enough, and you've referenced coming back, but I wonder what would be optimal, if there is an optimal. And then I think you went very quickly through other towns that have these funds. And I only got Lincoln and Harvard. And
There are dozens of communities.
dozens. Belmont? How about Belmont?
I don't know about Belmont. I can check and I.
Okay.
But-
I'll ask a member of our commission, actually.
I'm sorry?
I'll ask a member of our commission who sat on everything in Belmont. So
Okay.
basically the goal for the funding.
I'm
Fine.
sorry. Can you
Is there an optimal amount that you're looking for?
So, that's, I would say no, not at this point. I know that $500,000 is for a land acquisition fund is not enough.
Yeah.
Land in Concord is expensive, and this would be starting a fund. And I know some communities are putting quite large and regular amounts into the conservation. I think, just right off the top of my head, if we had, 2 million in the funds, we would be in a good position. But even $500,000 would allow the ability for the commission to, for example, acquire an option to purchase. So that it's acquiring right away, but it's basically assuring the landowner that we would go through the town meeting process to appropriate additional funds, whether it's through, additional CPA or requesting capital. But we would have that ability to be able to, this is quite similar to what I think the municipal affordable housing trust has in place.
Yeah, very. And this request fits squarely with the town's priorities for the preservation of open space and agricultural land. And that's a huge problem, as it is with housing. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. That was good. You had my question exactly. Like 500,000 is not enough, but all right, Ed, your hand is up.
Yeah, please. Hi, Delia. I note that you referenced the Assabet River Bluff project as a combination between housing and open space. that was really well received at town meeting, and I wondered if you are, have you contemplate any further ones. It was kind of a unique situation. Hopefully this can be, come again. And I know that the Affordable Trust worked very, very closely, with everybody. So to get all this done. So the conservation fund would be much like the Mutual Affordable House Trust.
Yeah.
Right. And that's right, Ed, thank you. I mean, I think the Assabet River, I mean, that was such a remarkable project. We were so lucky to
Yeah.
partner with different housing, affordable housing groups in town. And we worked most closely with the Housing Development Corporation because they have that ability to, they could acquire land themselves. But there's, with every conservation land acquisition, there is an immediate and initial reaching out to the housing groups to see if there's the ability to make this sort of project that the Assabet River Bluff project was, and that would certainly continue.
Right.
Thank you.
I love the collaboration. Diane?
Hi, thank you, Delia, so much. So in some ways, with the risk of making a bad farming pun, this is good seed money, right? For what you're trying to move forward. But my bigger question is, can you give us examples, Delia, of opportunities that you've missed in the absence of this kind of money? I mean, what has come up in the last couple of years where the not having this kind of fund meant that we lost some possible conservation land?
Yep, so there's one that that I was just discussing with the new Assistant Natural Resources Director who started a week ago Monday, and I was saying this is such a bummer that we lost this land. So it is a parcel that was surrounded on 3 sides by town conservation land, and it went to auction and it sold for really short money. Under $50,000, and we lost. Yep, it was small. I mean, it was a under 5-acre parcel.
Where was it, Delia?
So it was the Risitano land off Walden Street.
Off Walden Street. Okay, thank you.
Bill?
I was just going to say, Delia, that I suspect, and I've seen this in other towns, where sometimes you can use that money to make the first part of the deal, and then in cooperation with other groups, replenish your fund, get your piece back to use again for further other places. I know, as I mentioned before, I was involved for a while in one of those deals out in Harvard where a big piece of property was picked up. They couldn't afford it. They were able to carve off the Conservation Commission was able to put down a down payment, carve off a small piece frankly for private development, and get the money back, while the town ended up and the Conservation Trust ended up buying the rest of the land. So it can be you're right, it can be a really important seed money for an organization.
Thank you, Bill. Paul, do you have a question, Paul?
I do. During a recent presentation in front of the FinCom, Kerry and the interim CFO were presenting all of the reserve funds in existence, and there is a land fund right now. Land fund was established in money in it, but town meeting established a land fund. It wasn't for the sole purpose of conservation, but it does have on a protecting environmental sensitive or critical land. So that's one of the options in an existing fund. So I'm just wondering the difference in usability of your new fund versus the existing fund. And have you looked into that? Because we do have an existing fund which can be funded right now directly.
So there's
How much is in that fund?
$40,000 right now.
Okay, thank you.
problem. There's $40,000 in that fund. It's not really funded much, and I don't know if that, so it was established in the 80s and it was amended in the 90s, and I'm not sure if it hasn't been really replenished because the CPA was enacted in Concord in the early aughts. But the reality is there's very little money in that fund. There's certainly not enough money to,
Right.
you know, and it would still need to go through, so that money, if there were an acquisition, I mean, there's just nowhere near enough money in that fund.
No, I know. And the reason why that fund was established by town meeting.
Mhm,
And the context of the presentation was all of our reserve accounts
mhm.
and stabilization accounts. And FinCom was about to recommend what to do with these accounts, whether to increase funding or establish new ones. So I think the whole question about reserve and stabilization funds is in progress right now. And there just happens to be a land fund. It's underfunded, but it wasn't funded with capital, with CPA money. It was funded with town, with town,
Oh.
a town meeting, just as any reserve account is. So I just kind of bring that up as sort of a background on this new request.
Right. And I think I think the land funds, you know, we have used that in the past more for due diligence, you know, doing phase 1 site assessments or doing appraisals, you know,
Surveys.
limited, you know, monies that land fund has been available, but it's generally not a very highly funded. And the difference with the CPA monies is that there is, I know it's not what it used to be with the town match, I mean, with the state match, but there is, you know, essentially free money coming into if you establish a land conservation land fund. There's some portion of that is not just coming from Concord residents, but it is also coming from the state. I think it's probably under 20% now.
Yeah, and just the reason why the land fund doesn't have a lot of money in is because nobody's asked to put money in that fund. It's not by definition, it only has 40,000. It's just over the years, I don't think there's been a warrant article or citizens petition or anything to add money to that. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. That's great. I learned a lot about the land fund earlier today too. It's all very fascinating. But Delia, thank you so much for coming and presenting and for bringing up your extension request as well. I appreciate your being here to talk with us. We're going to move on because my timekeeping skills are abysmal apparently. We have the application with Elizabeth Hughes next for Assabet River Bridge.
Hello, and thank you for having me tonight. So I'm not sure this project is an ongoing project for many years. So I don't know how far back you need me to go with explaining the bridge. I'm looking for your guidance, Eve, on
Okay.
or whether you just want me to speak to the current request.
I would love for you to speak to the current request, and we will discuss the background when we talk about the application in our discussion. But also, I have a special, I don't know if you have ability to show us the movie that was in the application, but I've been I've seen it about 13 times today.
I do. So if you do want me to show it, I'd be.
Well, let me ask my committee, has everybody seen this movie that's in the application? Yeah,
Yes.
Nick's seen it,
Yeah.
Bill's seen it. Okay,
Yeah,
Jeff has seen
right.
it. All right, I've seen it too. That's a lot of people. So probably we don't need to play it again, but I just recommend that everybody go and watch this movie. And
Very
please-
helpful.
Yeah, it was, anyway, I could talk a lot, but please,
Yeah.
Elizabeth, go ahead with the $490,000 application here. That's in part 4.
Okay. But knowing you're an architect, I will have news for the community on Monday, the 27th.
Oh,
So, pretty exciting. So anyways, I will share my
mysterious.
screen. And so this application represents the last phase of a funding request through CPA for the design, engineering, and permitting for the bridge. Currently CPA has funded $785,000 towards this, and we've been successful in securing $810,000 in Mass Trails grants. There's some indication that there may not be Mass Trails funding for this next coming round. That's sad to hear, but everybody can figure out why. So this request, currently the project is coming up on the 25% design submission with Mass DOT. When this project was originally started, it was not included in the Transportation Improvement Program, which is the state mechanism for funding certain projects. 2 years ago, we were successful in submitting the project to the Metropolitan Planning Organization to have the project included on the TIP. That process, you start with having your project given a project notification number, and it puts you on a list of projects known. They're called the universally known projects on the list in the TIP. And the project got included on that list, which is your first, it's the nose, the camel's nose under the tent. The Metropolitan Planning Organization will not program a construction project for a specific year in the TIP. The TIP is a 5-year rolling funding document that the MPO does. And they do not program a project within those 5 years until after the 25% design public hearing through MassDOT. I think everybody right now can see the current application funding request. What I want to kind of show is, so in your application package is the current construction, the current timeline for design, permitting, engineering from start to finish. This is the Mass DOT's required format. And you can, as you go through, you can see the level of detail and specifics, ready for initial review, and it's mind numbing. The process that Mass DOT requires construction projects to go through for design, permitting, and engineering. And this starts, this whole process started back in 2022. And we're now getting to the 25% design public hearing. What you do need to understand is at the 25 design public hearing, the project's at 50% completed. So I don't want people to think we're only at 25%. No, that's just the process. 50% of the work is already completed when you get to the 25% design public hearing. So the funding we have gotten so far will carry this project all the way through to the 75% design public hearing. And it is only these from 75% design, our final architectural design plans, our final state and federal permitting, the final bridge design, the 100% submission. You have to go through 2 structural submissions. The consultant has already gone through the bridge type selection and been approved by Mass DOT, which means that they have found the project constructible, feasible, permittable, and that allows you to go forward. So the process between 75% design and actual final plans, specs, and engineering. So it's called PS&E. I'm learning so much. That will take probably between now at 25%. It will take 2 years to finish going through the Mass DOT process. In part, you submit for your 25% design public hearing. Mass DOT has 90 days in which to provide you comments. The consultant then has to address those comments. You have to resubmit, and Mass DOT has another 60 days. We did have 1 year of a delay. Mass DOT required additional borings for the supports for the bridge. They were not able to do those borings last year. The river never got low enough. This year, sadly, it did get low enough, and they did complete the borings. Delia, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was a month ago, or yeah, somewhere around there. So that's all been submitted. The other piece of this budget is there's 2 existing conservation restrictions on both sides of the river. One is associated with 68 Commonwealth Ave, which is Concord Park Assisted Living, and then the other is associated with 310 Baker Ave. Delia and I will be working with town council and the state to go through and amend those CRs to explicitly, allow the bridge and possibly take that area out of those conservation restrictions. In exchange, the state will require a net benefit, and we have been in talked with the Concord Housing Development Corporation, who has agreed that the conservation restriction we can on their land at Junction Village, which is the riverfront area, which can't be developed anyways, but they have agreed we will move forward and assist with having a new conservation restriction on that land in exchange. And that will also likely take a 1.5 to 2 years to do. So that's the remaining budget where we're at. That will get us to the end. The 25% design submission is supposed to happen by November 8th. And also between November 3rd and the end of the year, we will probably sometime in the beginning of December be submitting to the MPO to have the project actually programmed in a specific year on the tip, which will solidify probably between 12 and 14 million in construction funding, which is how the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail was funded for construction.
Wow, Elizabeth, thank you so
Huge.
much. Yeah, I can't imagine, I imagine that's a tiny portion of what you're dealing with on this project. And thank you for doing that. And thank you for navigating the 3-dimensional spider web of sticky regulations in this state and local situation. I want to point out that in 2020, the CPC funded through application 819, $250,000, which was used as a matching grant. Real quick, 2022, application 921, 300,000 out of, and then another 710 was required to match that. In 2024, with application number 5, we funded 200,000. So the 490 some thousand is the largest amount, but as you said, it's the final piece. Okay, so this was assigned to Diane, Bill, and Nancy, or rather they volunteered to talk through this with us. And Nancy got her hand up first. So why don't you take it away? Nancy, you're on mute.
Mute, Nancy.
I'm
Yeah.
just dumbfounded by Mass DOT's process, and I just think Elizabeth has done an incredible job sticking with this project. I figured it started about 2015, but maybe you said a little later, but
So just real quick, Marcia and I cooked this idea up when Ian Gillespie went through and redeveloped 300 Baker Ave.
Oh.
And we got him to pay $10,000 towards the initial feasibility study that was done for the project.
and
And so,
what year?
so that had to, boy, I
Anyway.
think that was 2000.
Even earlier than I thought.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible exercise in patience and perseverance, and I just want to call that out at the beginning. I think in my experience with Mass Highway, 25% is not as bad as it sounds. It's much more further along than that, really. In reality, they don't want to be making any big changes, but they still go through their whole landmark situation. So I think this is a great point to be at, but still a lot of work to do. And did I hear correctly, or did I read it in the application that November 25th, there would be another submission to Mass DOT?
I think it's November 8th.
27th?
November 8th. Not the,
Okay, okay,
I
I
think it's
read
November
a
8th they
different
want to
number.
submit.
And I was curious about any safety mishaps that have been reported over the years, going over the current bridge that is so inadequate. Is there a record of accidents or anything like that?
So
I've
Sure.
walked there, so
Yeah.
I know it's horrible. But
so there, I think any safety accident would probably be life-threatening, and I'm not aware of that, but I can tell you that on
okay,
at least 3 occasions, our engineering consultant has been out at the site and witnessed people walking down the commuter rail bridge.
Oh,
And I actually think, I forgot what year it was, I think it was like 5 years ago. The Central Transportation Planning Staff, which is the transportation planning for the Metropolitan Planning Organization, did a first mile, last mile study of the impediment from getting to Baker Ave to
right.
the West Concord train station. And even while they were out there, they did witness somebody walking down the
Yeah.
track.
Okay. And do you know what the status is of the Novo housing development? That's gonna be a big benefit to that project if it ever gets rolling again. But
So the last update I have is that I am currently working, Delia and I are working to figure out where to relocate the Concord grapevines. And because come March, when the first frost comes out of the ground, we will be looking for volunteers, and I'm looking for anybody who has expertise on grapevines to cut the grapevines all the way back so that they can be transplanted. And I believe the
oh wow.
what will have to happen before the Novo project can move forward is the end, that end of 300 Baker Ave, that Welch's used to occupy,
Oh,
will need to be demolished. And they will be constructing a parking lot. And that parking lot is required before they start the Novo project, because that will take away and close off that large parking lot in the back and a row of parking on the side. So the last I heard, they are hoping to start that sometime in the demolition sometime at the end of April.
wow. I have two other really fast and little things. There was a video in the video, there was a gravel path that was referenced. Is that anywhere near any kind of a project yet? Probably not.
No, so I believe if I remember correctly, that gravel path is just the small path that goes behind Concord Park Assisted Living.
Okay,
The lower path that goes adjacent to the river
Okay.
is publicly accessible.
well trodden.
Yeah, but there's a path that's closer to the building that is for the residents, but I believe that's the little gravel path.
And the
This
last,
project, oh, sorry.
sorry,
Nancy.
oh, go ahead.
This project, because it is going to be funded through the Transportation Improvement Program, the state, and this also kind of expanded the scope a little bit. The state does require that the terminus of both sides end at, public access, so
Okay.
public ways. So, the one side on Baker Ave will be constructing from through the Novo out to Baker Ave, a publicly accessible and deed restricted, open to the public. On the other side, the path will go past Concord Park Assisted Living. They are going to be making improvements to the commuter rail parking lot, and it will actually connect up to the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail.
Oh, yeah, wow, that's great. And finally, I just think in the video, the lighting was really quite bright. And it might just be because they were trying to highlight the shape and form of the bridge and whatnot. But subtle lighting there at night would be really important, I think.
Yeah.
So the architectural team that's working on this project has a lighting consultant on board who is well-versed and knowledgeable and has done projects in natural areas and
Okay.
fully understands that this is a wildly scenic river. Through this
Yeah.
process with the 25%, once we get to 25%, we will be going back to the River Stewardship Committee and to
Okay.
keep them informed of what's happening, but they are fully aware of those elements of the
Okay.
project.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay,
Incredible
Bill,
job.
you're on this project too.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, again, I'm really impressed with what you've done. This is amazing. And to coordinate this with all these, with the different groups and taking this time. I just need some clarification about money, but it's pretty simple. When I try to add it up, it seems to me that Mass Trails so far has given us $810,000 towards the project, and the CPA so far has given $785,000. That's a total of about 1.595 or about $1.6 million so far. So now, with CPA giving more this money now, we're given 785. Now we'll be giving an additional 490,000 if it's granted, 490,570. So now the CPA will have granted something like $1.275 million. Okay. So far in planning, it's cost a little over $2 million for planning overall. Do you anticipate coming back and then the whole project, I understand, which is stunning to me, 12 million. But okay, that's life, I guess. Andrew, maybe the Boy Scouts could build this, but I don't think so. I think it's too much for them. So now my question is, do you anticipate coming back and asking for more money, do you think, at some point for further planning or permitting as we go forward?
No,
No.
for
Yeah. Oh, well, how about construction then? I don't know. Any more money, do you think?
I can't speak about construction,
Sure.
but no, this will be it as far as design, engineering, permitting.
Okay. All right.
So for construction, until the project gets to a much higher detail as far as Mass DOT. They may, there's oftentimes certain elements that communities may want in a project they deem, aren't fundable.
Sure.
And so there was over $1 million in items in the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail that weren't funded through the TIP. So, until we get there, they may not fund the lighting.
Right, okay,
They,
that makes sense.
they may say, what, don't light it. And if somebody wants to use it, at night, our purpose is that we do want this to be, somewhat of a little bit more active space. The commuter rail,
Sure.
runs to like 10 o'clock at night. And with Novo there, you do want it to be, at least, have some lighting. But they may determine that that's not a, fundable portion of the project, and the town,
Good.
may have to, there may be CPA fund, it may be, there may be other grants available that can help with construction.
All right, that's all I need. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Diane, you're on this project too. Do you have a question?
You're on
Diane,
mute,
you're on
Diane.
mute?
I'm trying to keep myself from you all having to suffer with my coughing. I've been following this project for years, and I know that we're putting a lot of money into this, and I don't know who the engineering firms are, the consulting engineering, who are getting all this $405,000. I don't think that's delineated in the project, and I'm just curious, how those, are those awards offered in a competitive bidding process, or have we been working with one consistent firm all the way along? That's the first.
So our primary engineering consultant is Greenman Peterson, GPI. They are the same consulting firm that did the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. And they have been the lead engineering firm on this project since the beginning, because of their familiarity with the area, specifically this type of project conquered the Mass DOT process, which they went through from design through construction with the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. Their sub-consultants include the architectural firm, the lighting consultants. We had to have a geotechnical consultant do the borings. I think that's it so far, as far as consultants.
Right. Well, what I've been so impressed by was, even though this is going to be money that we have to put forward, from the very beginning, one of the things that you and Marcia emphasized is that then the state would give the $12 to $14 million to build the bridge. In other words, you got us, as you said, your nose under the tent so that we could be on that list. So I'm so grateful for that. I would love just in this information for the delineation of what firm is receiving this and for how long we've been working with them, because I just think that's just good general information for the community to have. So Elizabeth, thank you for your patience on this one. And I'm very grateful and quite excited about it. The only last question I have is that, were the Novo project not to go through, does that affect the feasibility of this undertaking?
It doesn't affect the feasibility, because
Or right, that obviously not, I'm sorry, that's the wrong word. Feasibility is the wrong word. I mean, does that affect the determination to go forward with it?
No, I don't believe
Okay.
so, because the property owners, Taurus has been very forthcoming in supporting, this project through the design of the Novo project. Should that project not move forward, the design portion that we are doing gets the project exactly to the parking lot. And then,
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, right.
yeah, and then from there, I'm confident that Taurus would grant a sidewalk easement for the existing sidewalk that wraps through and then goes out to Baker Ave.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mhm.
I have to say that the length of this process, and I think of the MCI Rotary, I mean, you, the chances of that being done in my lifetime is becoming increasingly remote. But Elizabeth, thank you so much.
2028.
All right,
Yeah,
Jeff,
right.
you have a question?
Thanks. Yes, thanks, Eve. Elizabeth, just looking for you to confirm my understanding from reading and tuning into the project in the past, that the design is to safely and comfortably accommodate pedestrians and cyclists through the whole length of the trail?
Yes, any project funded through Mass DOT and the TIP, they do require it to be a multi-use, multimodal.
Great, thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Nancy and Diane and Bill, and also Jeff for your questions. And thank you guys, team, go have a beverage of your choice, and we'll see you later. Thank you very much for being here with us today. We're gonna
Have a
move
good
on to
night, everyone.
Jesse.
Bye-bye.
Jesse, thank you for being so patient. And next, we're going to be hearing about the Thoreau Surveys Preservation and Access Project.
Hi, I'm Jessie Hopper. I'm the Assistant Curator of Special Collections at the Concord Free Public Library. So I'm gonna share, I hope this works. Let's see. There. Yeah. Sorry, haven't
Yeah.
done this on this computer
Yeah, from
before.
your screen sharing.
Oh. Okay,
Okay.
I think so. Let me
All
see
right.
if it works now. Ah. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. Okay, now I'll make this. Okay. Everyone can see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay. So the Concord Free Public Library holds the largest and most important collection of primary source material by author and naturalist Henry David Thoreau in New England, and the most significant archive of materials documenting Concord as Thoreau knew it. Among these holdings is the extensive collection of Henry David Thoreau's land and property surveys, many of which are of Concord homes and historic sites. This application seeks funding in the amount of $27,975, which seems so much smaller than everybody else's requests, for the digitization, rehousing, and conservation of the Thoreau surveys. So in 1874, just after the library was founded, Sophia Thoreau deposited the unpublished manuscripts of her brother, filling about 3 trunks. One of them constituted a complete survey of most farms in town. And in 1876, she bequeathed these to the library. The original collection contained 195 surveys, 192 of which were donated by Sophia Thoreau. In going through our collections, we have found 6 more surveys to bring our total up to 201. One of them was donated in the past year. So these surveys constitute the bulk of the Thoreau collection at the library. And they're used by a wide variety of audience, from local residents looking at their properties to researchers from around the world. For years, the surveys were not available. Before the internet, there was actually nothing. People couldn't see them at all. In 1995, the Thoreau surveys were fully cataloged, and in 2002, they were digitized under a grant from AT&T, and they were all put online. So this is what our site currently looks like with the surveys. The surveys were done at 150 PPI, pixels per inch. which is really small and not up to preservation standards. In addition, a lot of the surveys are rather large, and they were digitized in pieces and stitched together. So you can see in this bottom image 4 different pieces, different colors, different the way it's stitched together. So when we try to send copies of surveys to scholars for their books, they're sent in pieces, which is not great. And I recently sent one to Robert Thorson, and I had to rescan just the section of the Walden survey. So our first ask is to have all of the surveys save one, which is the river survey, which was digitized by the Huntington when it was used in their exhibit last year. So 200 of our surveys, to have them all redigitized at NEDCC. The next part of our ask is for conservation. This is our most recent survey that we received from the Emerson family. This is of Emerson House. Several of the surveys are in need of conservation. This one in particular has some mold damage. It's attached to some sort of backing board that is, there's cardboard, and we're not entirely sure how it's affixed. And so to have that removed as well as to be rehoused. There are 2 others that need sort of extensive conservation due to being folded. We're also asking to have all of our surveys rehoused. They're all contained in Mylar, which is a non-reactive plastic that's used so we can bring the surveys out when people request them in the room and people can't touch them. But they were done in the late 90s, and they were done with tape around the edge of the Mylar. So as over time, the surveys have shifted into the corners where the tape is, and a number of them are actually stuck. So part of our request is to have them all taken out by the trained people at NEDCC of that housing, and to have it redone. It's done with heat now, so there's no glue or tape. So there won't be that chance of it happening in the future. In addition, we have a number of surveys, because so many of ours are draft surveys. They it's hard to see on here, but you can see sort of these little lines all around the edge of this is the Walden Pond survey, where he's using his surveying compass to make the lines to do the final survey. On a number of them, they're very faded out. So they can do enhancement with IR, infrared, to bring those in the digital scans to make them more readable. In addition, there's pencil on a number of them, so it will make them more readable. This Walden Pond survey will also get its own special rehousing because it is used so often. Finally, once we are done, once everything is digitized, we're working on a collaboration with Town GIS to create, whether it's a layer on the GIS or if it's a separate site. Right now, they've built us a separate site where we can have the surveys overlaid over a current version of the town map. Right now, this is a sort of a beta site, and you can see this is the library site right here. And the townhouse, First Parish are out there. So thank you. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Jesse. That was great. I am the assignee to your application, and you've actually answered 2 of my questions in your presentation. And I really loved seeing the surveys live in the archive on Saturday. That's super fun for me. I also have to say that these surveys to me are not just informational. They're kind of they're a type of artwork too. They're kind of artistic, and I'm not sure if there was anything else that was done in survey land back in the day that would compare to Thoreau's surveys, or if they were, if we could show that they're accurate, or even if it matters if they were really all that accurate, because they're very pretty. My one question for you is, were there ever copies made of these? Like, I know that sometimes surveys and other documents were hand copied or much, much later photocopied. And are those things around at all?
So a lot of ours are actually the draft surveys. So the final surveys would go to the landholders. So I know from today, we just found out where the actual final of Orchard House and the Wayside are, which made me sad because they are not here, but perhaps at some point they will be here. But the final, so ours tend to be a little less pretty. The final surveys are a little prettier sometimes. Some of them have like color and they'll have trees drawn on them. So, you know, people fake the surveys as well. There was a case that I just heard of not that long ago where someone was told it was an original survey and it was clearly a digitization of one from the original. They actually don't know where the original is, but it was sold as an original. And as soon as they brought it over to show us, and as soon as they brought it into the room, we were like, I'm really sorry. It was a fake. You know, so people fake the surveys. We don't actually generally make copies. I think the only one we've seen digitized was Walden, and that one has been used, but people don't generally make copies of them. But I know there are families who still have the original thorough surveys, the ones their families received.
Okay, yes.
I feel like this is Antique Roadshow and you have to say, I'm sorry, but this is not a not a real object.
It was very sad because it's one of my favorite surveys. It's of the Damon Mill land, which I think I had out for everybody, and it's so pretty. And it was, as soon as they brought it to show us, I was like, oh no, you can see, you know, in the corner it had clearly been copied or photographed and digitized because it was all wiggly in the wrong places.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we have you looking over these things for us. I just have one more question. That the money that is on the application, the 27,975, that's for phase 1 of this project, not for phase 2. Phase 2 is done completely by the staff and with the town budget, right?
Yeah, we'll add them to our repository, so they'll be saved in perpetuity, and then they will also we haven't decided exactly how they will go online. We don't really like the way that they're currently up. So that's part of a bigger library-wide website issue. But they will be up, and then hopefully in conjunction with GIS. They were really excited when we had them over to show them our surveys, and then we sent them the scans and they were very sad. So the better scans will make Neil and Heather much happier over at GIS.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I don't think anyone else has any questions because there's no other hands up. So I'm going to also release you to the rest of your evening. And thank you again for being here with us and for working on this important project.
Thank you very much.
Yay. Okay. Next up, we have Concord Art with the Community Garden Rehabilitation and Restoration Project. And I think, Natalie, are you presenting that one too?
Yes, I am. I'm sharing my screen now. All right. Are you able to see the Concord Art logo?
Yeah.
Well done.
Terrific. All right. So yes, I'm Natalie Fondriest from Concord Art, and we're excited to tell you about our upcoming rehab project for our community garden. Now, I'm not the only one from Concord Art on this call. We also have our executive director, Kate James, the other Natalie on our staff, our assistant director, and importantly, we have our landscape designer, Kristen First, on the call, and she will be able to help with a lot of technical questions I can anticipate at the end. But first, let me give an overview of our project. So although we can see Concord Art in this photo from 1937, what it currently looks like, at least from the back, is what you see here on the left. We are under construction for a very exciting new multi-purpose programming space, which you can see the architectural rendering for in the bottom right there. That is set to open in July of 2026. And at that point, our attention will turn to the landscaping around this new space. We have this really beautiful and functional community garden, or at least we used to before it became a dirt patch. And we want to build on the success of what was there before, but we really, really want to improve the accessibility of this outdoor space. So to give you a better sense of what I'm talking about, on the left is the pre-existing patio, and on the right, we are looking at the front of Concord Art. Specifically on the right-hand side of the building is a ramp, and that is our current ADA entrance. As you can see, it leads from the historic sidewalk, which can be really tough to navigate in New England weather, as you can imagine, snow, ice, mud, etc. And you can actually, if you look closely, see one of our artists painting on the far side of that ramp. Now, with the improvements that we have planned for this upcoming landscaping, we want to extend the walkways and rampways and include handrails that are improvements to accessibility. Specifically, we want those to go in these places you see circled in pink. So I'll give you a bird's eye view of the layout in just a moment, but the ramp in the left picture will lead from our driveway onto the patio, and the ramp in the right-hand side picture will be ever so slightly moved so that it can replace what's there now and extend to the art barn, is what we like to call the new space or new classroom that's coming. So from a bird's eye view, here is the landscaping overview. The building itself is in white, the greenery is in green, and the paved patches are in gray. The driveway is on the left-hand side, and the patio is at the back, as you can see, but specifically what we're looking for support on is what you see here in yellow, the ramps, landings, and walkways. Now in pink, you can see where the ramps and handrails will be. So again, on the left, we have from the driveway to the patio, and that will have three entrances into the building. And then on the right-hand side, you are looking at Lexington Road on the bottom of the screen, just to orient you. And so on the right-hand side, we will have two entrances into the building. I want to emphasize, though, that these are more than just entrances to a building. They're on the case for the path from the driveway to the patio, that's our garden entrance. But on both left and right hand sides, there are also spaces where someone in a wheelchair who's an artist can set up a plein air painting an easel for the day and work. We offer classes and workshops year round. We have visitors who want to enjoy our space, so it's important to us that we create an accessible green space outside of our building, because the building, of course, is limited to gallery hours. The green space is open 24/7. So I also want to emphasize that our handrails will be a vast improvement over what we have now. Specifically, they will have an upper and a lower rail so that whether you're walking or seated, you can use them. And I also really want to emphasize that the entrance to the garden, again, from that driveway on the left, will be much more welcoming, much more visible, and much more accessible than what was there before. It used to be a longer driveway. You wouldn't know that there was a beautiful patio there just walking down the street. And I also want to make clear that what we're looking at on the screen now is not actually a photo. It is a computer generated image of the future pedestrian walkway and garden entrance. So the driveway will become a little shorter. We'll still be able to provide 2 parking spaces there. But we are adding more greenery, which we're very excited about. And if you see that, that red square right at the end of the driveway, that is in fact our new garden entrance sign, which meets the requirements for signage from the Architectural Access Board. Again, we want our green space to be accessible to everyone because we really are a community center. And this green space is used for all sorts of things. At Concord Art, we have receptions when it's warm enough to have people outside, exhibition receptions. We have visitors and students who like to eat lunch out there. We have, of course, artists, as you can see, who like to set up wherever they can around our property to paint. We have hosted all sorts of events, including weddings, like you see it in the bottom center image there. And we even have a local fox who we love to spot in the warmer months. So we're hoping to see all this vibrancy, all this life come back at the end of all this construction that we're living through right now. And we're really hoping that you will support us in doing that. So please give us what questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. That was a great presentation. And I appreciate that you were able to meet us, some of us at the on site on Saturday morning amidst all of the other stuff that you had going on. So thank you for meeting us. Diane volunteered to represent us on this project. Do you remember saying that, Diane?
I do.
Do you have any questions for Natalie?
Natalie, thank you so much. I mean, as I read the project through, my sensibility is that what you're asking us to really fund are the handicapped, the handrails, and those access points, not the landscaping, not the other things that will continue to enhance the park. Am I misunderstanding the application?
You are understanding the application correctly. I'm going to go back. Oh. Are you able to see the layout on,
right,
on your screen?
The pink.
Yes, the yellow. So you are, sorry?
Yellow and pink, right?
Oh, yes. The pink just specifies the ramps and handrails. So the yellow and pink, that's right.
Right. And the question that I know will come up, as I think we kind of foreshadowed on Saturday, is the degree to which this is a appropriate recreation project. Many of us believe it is, but it will require some review and some care. I think the fact that you're making the park available, where I presume there will be signage as well that says park this way, you know, things that invite people to use that space and as an always accessible and not intimidating that you have to kind of belong to the art association to go back there and use it. You know, I think will make it particularly appropriate for CPC funding.
Yes, and oh, go ahead. I know I mentioned this on Saturday, but I'll reiterate, we really do want to make sure that it is not only open, but very, very visible and obvious to anyone, not just Concord Art members. And we have even had high schoolers take prom photos there. They took themselves right in the back. They actually didn't go through the building. So that I just distinctly remember as a very adorable example of people who weren't necessarily affiliated with any art exhibition or art class, but who wanted to use the green space for the sake of green space. We're hoping to create more moments like that on our property.
Thank you so much. And that was my both my question, to make sure I had that straight, and also to urge a certain kind of letter of support that says, okay, this is going to be an open park for people to use.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. That is a good point, that everyone needs letter of support to go with their application, which I just discovered those letters of support are due in November. But anyway, Jeff, did you have a question?
Could you stop sharing, Natalie, for us so we can see? Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Eve. Related and following up on Diane's question, Natalie, I think it'd be helpful to me to better understand sort of that the long-term public perception of this private open space to maybe propose some language and signage like you have the indication of the accessible entrance, etc. But how will people know in 5 years and 10 years if habits don't, whatever, I think it'd be interesting to capture that in some way, and I'd leave that to you to propose. Like we propose to have this sign on the end of the driveway and in the space, like if no programs are in session, the public is welcome, or whatever. I leave the language up to you, but I think that would help me wrap my head around this public investment in a private space that where there's a current commitment to welcome the public, but who knows what happens in the future.
Yes, so branding, I'll call it, is really important and something that's been on our minds as we've developed this project, even dubbing it the garden and the garden entrance specifically. That is an improvement on what was there before, which didn't have a name, and so it didn't have an easy way to identify it to people beyond Concord Art. So we showed you that starting point of that red sign, but that is a starting point because we do want to make sure that the messaging is clear.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions too, Natalie. I saw in the application that the amount of the CPC funds requested is $50,605, but that the remaining $284,800 some were coming from private donations. Is that true? That's amazing.
We have quite a development team at Concord Art. They've already been able to raise $2 million for that art barn that I talked about. So we are very fortunate to have a supportive community, and we will continue to consider other grant opportunities. But we are determined to get this project done.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, thank you. And then maybe this is more of a question for Kristen or whoever organized the estimated budget. I guess it's Onyx Corporation's estimated budget. I know that the yellow and the pink were on both sides of the building, but it seems that on the second page, the $22,200 number comes from item number 3, which is the front ramp, landing, and walkway. And the way I read that is just that item on the right-hand side, the plan right side of the diagram, not in the back. And the same thing for the next page, where item number 7, which says handrails. It looks to me, it does say refer to L2, which I'm really glad that you showed us L2. That was great. It's not in the application, but it was really great to see it on the presentation. It says iron handrails. Both of these are from the front walk. So I was just wondering if it actually is that everything is going toward that long 100-foot walk. It says 100 feet on here on the right, and then or if it really is meant to be on both sides of the building. It just wasn't clear from the estimate.
Oh, so the estimate we used to figure out what we wanted to ask for, but our ask is really for both sides. At the time of application, we knew that the design would be tweaked in a few details, and we wanted to ask for around 50,000. And so we wanted to point to certain lines in our application, but really the ask is for help on both sides of the building.
Gotcha. Okay. That answers my question. And I don't see anybody else with any other questions. So I want to thank you very much. And thank you, Kate, for coming, and Kristen. I know you didn't get a chance to talk to us, but I appreciate that everyone came into our meeting to present this excellent application. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're steamrolling along. The last 2 applications are being presented by Anne, I hear. Is that true, Anne?
Yes, and I see that Doug Ellis, the chair of the Historical Commission, is here as well. So
very
I'm
good.
not sure if you wanted to say a few words, or Doug, would you like me to just get started, or?
Yeah, I would just jump in, and
Okay, okay, great.
obviously I'm fully supportive.
Great. The Historical Commission was a co-applicant with the Planning Division. So first, of course, we'd love to thank you all for supporting several Historical Commission and Planning Division projects in the past. We're still currently working on a historic preservation plan. The commission, of course, works broadly across the entire Concord landscape, as opposed to some of these other applications which are focused on, very specific projects. And of course, the current application, which I'll bring up the screen here, is for a, is for a thematic preservation study for the Concord Reformatory and West Concord. So this, of course, is a project that rose to the very top of the priority list with the state announcement that they were going to be deaccessioning MCI Concord. And of course, the town of Concord has invested a lot of funds into creating a vision plan over the past few months. And in the grant application, we just stressed, what the consultants and what the community is saying. And this is a once in a generation opportunity, and the time is really now. This project is going to be supplementing and complementing the work of the Concord or the MCI Concord Advisory Board and DCAM. There may be gaps in what DCAM is providing, and that the town may wish to fill. And so this application would help fill those gaps. I wanted to show you, this is a photo that Doug Ellis had taken. There are changes taking place in West Concord. This is this past summer. So it's not just MCI Concord, but across the landscape. West Concord was designated one of the highest priority heritage landscapes in Concord, and this has been recognized for 30 years. It was brought up in the last historic preservation plan in 1995, raised again, and regional study by the DCR. There's a study in 2013 of West Concord, and then of course Envision Concord in 2018, and now again, even though it's always been something that's been a priority, now we really have to address it. As we said, the time is now. And just to give you a little background, there were, so some of these areas in Concord have been surveyed, but these surveys are decades old and they were quite cursory. The funding was limited, and they used volunteers to do sort of broad brushstrokes across West Concord. This was back in the 1980s. And, these are really, groundbreaking studies that really pointed out like why these areas are so important, but very little has been done since. And we're trying to remedy that with this renewed, survey approach. Some areas in West Concord have never been surveyed. You see, so these areas have been surveyed. Con I is the Concord Reformatory. So it's just a small portion of the MCI Concord land, which does not include the Concord Cemetery or, the Junction Village area. The Northeast Correctional Center farmland, the prison farm, has never been surveyed. And that's been long recognized again as a, really important piece of real estate that Concord cares deeply about, that's state owned, and, it's something that needs to be, assessed. And right, as I mentioned, these other surveys are quite old. And so this, again, this thematic survey would supplement the work of others. Let's see, DCAM is doing a limited study of the land that is being sold, but we're not entirely sure what that what that study entails, and hopefully we'll know more about that next summer when these funds would become available. So this application is kind of broad because things are evolving quickly and we can't get too specific since there are a lot of unknowns at this point. And just to give you a quick sense of, you know, some things of what we're talking about really a document, a study that would be useful, and it includes narratives, and I'll get more deeply into that, but ultimately it would result in area forms that are included in the Massachusetts Inventory of Cultural Resources and available online. It's called MACRIS. Currently in MACRIS, this is the survey form for the reformatory, and as you see, it dates to 1988. And it still includes a lot of, you know, the White Ladies and the Elm Street houses that have since been demolished. And of course, so much work has been done in the last, you know, several decades. Now there's a People's Guide to Greater Boston, which includes the reformatory. And, you know, there's a whole new way of thinking about preservation surveys. It's no longer the windshield surveys that they used to do based on the architecture. It's more about the cultural history of a site. And obviously this site has quite a lot of interesting history, you know, that relates to social justice and democracy and, you know, voting rights, things that Concord cares deeply about. Oops, oh no. Oops, here we go. So the prison and the reformatory helped drive the economic prosperity of West Concord in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This is a bird's eye view from 1893 that shows the reformatory as sort of the gateway to West Concord, and it's sort of the welcoming entrance into West Concord, which is this thriving community, you know, with, you know, the railroads bringing goods, you know, out to the wider community. And you see that the railroad comes right into the prison because of course the prison was also where a lot of goods were manufactured. A lot of the Concord industries had their start in the reformatory. So the prisoners, workers, industrialists, and reformers influenced the entire area's development. And Massachusetts became a national model for criminal reform when the prison in Concord became the reformatory for men in 1884. So there are a lot of, you know, Concord has always kind of sold the sort of positive aspects of this, as it should, but history is complicated. These several West Concord industries like the Wearing Hat Company or Wearing Hat Factory, the Phoenix Rattan and Boston Harness Companies, they relied on prison labor. So, you know, here they are getting free labor and making a profit, right? And the industrialists who did make that profit, they accumulated enough wealth to build neighborhoods for their workforce housing for reformatory instructors as well as former prisoners. And this is actually a photo from New York of another Wearing Hat Company workplace. So this thematic preservation study of the reformatory and associated cultural landscapes and housing will help manage change in West Concord, you know, addressing some of those images that we saw at the beginning. You know, this one, where things have just been clear cut. So in the application, I mentioned the more specific items that this study would accomplish. It would inform the preservation of West Concorde's distinctive character, its human scale, its diverse housing stock, its anchor buildings and gateways like the superintendent's house. It would identify the themes and resources and areas that support those themes. It would place the events and themes and resources in their national and regional context. So it could also help support interpretation and education, which of course Concord cares deeply about too. It would inform preservation planning and zoning by identifying West Concord areas for future surveying and districts. It would facilitate evaluation of historic resources for National Register eligibility, including the superintendent's house, which is already known to be eligible for the National Register. And it would also finally identify character-defining features that provide a basis for refining design guidelines. And there are several, there is a package of design guidelines for West Concord, but it seems as if no architectural historians were actually involved, and that could just enhance the guidelines. So that's it for the presentation, and I'm here for any questions. And Douglas, of course.
I love your color combinations for your presentation. It's a very pretty presentation. And Andrew signed up for this. And Andrew, do you have any questions?
I did review really closely trying to find something, but I didn't really have any questions, honestly.
Okay, I have a million questions, but I'm going to let Diane go first. Diane, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry, mine I think will be very quick. So Anne, that's gorgeous, but we can see the clear cutting in what happened in West Concord. I mean, that it's a travesty and everybody's upset about it, but there it is. How would this particular study prevent that kind of thing going forward? I mean, you show us a devastated area, but to what degree would the work that you all are doing, if not prevent, at least reduce the possibility of that kind of future development? And it's asked out of ignorance. I just don't know.
Right. Well,
maybe Doug can help us with that.
Sorry.
Maybe Doug also has an answer
Yeah,
to that.
no, I'll be happy to at least kick that one off, Anne, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
It's part of a much larger trend. I mean, that's a piece of it, but we've got all these other pieces of West Concord that are just constantly being chipped away a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And we need to get the documentation done before it goes too far, because you don't know what you have sometimes until it's gone. And to be able to have this baseline to really get into the weeds of what we have and how we got to where we are, I think is just priceless for moving forward.
I respect that so much, Doug. I guess my question is, having all that information, could we have prevented something like what happened in West Concord? In that
particular case, I don't think so. That has to do more with the zoning and kind of the legalities of what we had to deal with. That wasn't historical preservation.
That's my presumption as well. So I guess
a longer demolition delay would have slowed it down.
Right.
And we've talked about that for a long time. Other communities have 2 years of a demolition delay.
Well, I'm just curious about the cause and effect. It's one thing to see the picture, it's another thing to understand what impact that would have. So thank you very much.
You can always buy the property.
Right. So, I mean, preservation does use a number of tools, and some of it is education, right? If people know what they have, they would value it more. And as Nancy said, a longer demo delay would enable the community, if it wanted to create a local historic district, which is something that could have stopped it. So in local, I know it may not be something everyone wants, but if you really want to prevent demolition, that's the way to do it. Also, National Register Historic Districts can, you know, you can acquire funding with, you know, through tax credits if the property is recognized to be eligible for the National Register. And you can also, it's also a means of preventing state or federal actions to take place. You know, if it's on the National Register, then the local Historical Commission and the State Historical Commission actually have environmental review and
That's
can
leverage, right?
Right, leverage, right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Right.
I have a couple questions. I got a little confused in the presentation. I thought at first, I've actually used the design guidelines before for West Concord, and I know about the 2013 plan. I thought that this application was sort of to update that, but then we got to talking about the reformatory, about MCI, and I realized that that's an excellent reason to launch something, but I don't know how much of this surveying and thematic surveying is actually happening inside the prison or not, based on your application.
Right. So the application addresses 3 areas. It addresses the farmland, right? The NECC prison farm, which has never been surveyed. So that should definitely be surveyed. That's been long on the list. Talks about the West Concord neighborhoods that are thematically tied to the prison. And then depending on whatever DCAM comes up with, which we don't know at this point, there may be or there may not be work done within the prison.
Okay. I was lucky enough to get a tour of the warden's house and much of the prison on the west side, or east side rather, including the chapel, which was super fun. And the beautiful fluted tower that's in the middle there is pretty cool. It's begging for a graphic to be made after it. So, but I think there's an enormous number of people and a huge process going on to try to figure out what to do with MCI. And as much as it would be fun to record what's there right now, I'm not sure how much a study like that of the stuff inside the prison is going to have an effect on that locomotive that's going right now. And also in my world, like a survey is you hire Stamsky and you go out there with measuring devices and put it all on a map. That's not what you mean though, right? A thematic survey is something else, right?
Right. It talks about the cultural history and puts it into the national context, and describes which, as I went through in the slideshow, you know, which resources support those themes, those national themes, those nationally significant themes, and which do not, and what the character defining features are of those resources. And, you know, part of this is, of course, housing, the diverse housing stock that's existing in Concord. It's much cheaper to preserve existing housing than it is to build new. And of course, that's also environmentally sustainable to reuse existing. So there are a lot of reasons to keep what we've got, right? To take better care of what we have. And let's see. Right, so the study would help, you know, create a framework to preserve those structures.
No, I understand. And I love that the survey from 2013. I do think it should, I didn't know it wasn't done professionally. That's how stupid I am, but I thought to get that updated would be great. It
Oh,
also,
that one was done professionally. And,
Oh, it
and that
was?
actually, if you saw in the application, it actually talks about how that survey did, it surveyed, I think, 75 structures, but then also identified 5 more phases of survey to be done.
It didn't happen, right?
Which never happened, not even the highest priority areas. So even just doing those very high priority areas that were suggested in 2013, and ideally, you know, connecting them thematically to the prison would be a great start.
It's a ton of work what you're proposing for $100,000, but it does occur to me that as the wall of the prison comes down, all those properties on Commonwealth, their land value is going to skyrocket being right next to the pond, and the houses will likely be in jeopardy one way or another. And I'm also a big fan of reuse, but okay, I'm off my soapbox. Bill, did you have a question? Bill, you're on mute.
Got it. So, Ann, a couple of questions. Concretely, what you'll do, as I understand it, maybe I'm wrong, you will send people out to walk down certain streets and literally write up what they see. Is that what you're? I'm thinking. I've seen the results on my street, and I know the person who did it, who literally described every house on the street. That's what you're talking about, that kind of thing, and talk about when they were built, etc. Is that what you're talking about?
Right. Well, we're talking about probably area forms more than individual structures, unless the structure is very significant.
Okay. Second question, then this ties in. And again, a lot of this has been done already, right? I just want to make sure I understand. But you're just saying there's gaps about where it hasn't been done. Is that correct?
Again, it was very, very cursory in the 1980s. Ann Forbes did a really terrific job and began to scratch the surface and began to let us know that these West Concord industries were, using free prison labor to
Yeah.
And then she identified some of the people and some of the properties, but at that point there was no internet. So, there was a demolition review, Nancy, maybe 2 years ago for a house on Prairie Street. And just in that one demolition, all of this incredible history came out. And I actually I wrote up not just a several page study on that particular house and how it connects to the broader history, but also a technical memo that I sent to the MCI Concord Advisory Board, which goes much deeper into this really, really fascinating national story that just hasn't been told.
Okay.
I can tell you just a little bit.
I get what you're saying. One quick question then. Do you use this money to hire somebody, to hire a company, or to hire an individual to go out and do this? Is that what you're thinking?
It would be an interdisciplinary team with a cultural historian and probably an architectural historian and maybe a landscape historian.
I see.
And possibly even archaeology.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Primarily, right, cultural historian.
And I want you to tell me your Prairie story later, because I worked on a house at 146 Prairie, and we saw the house next door get demolished, and I wonder if it's the same house. But anyway, okay. If no one else has any more questions for Ann about that, we'll let her. Thank you very much, Doug, for being here and for weighing in. That was a good point that you had made. But we could move on to before we all turn into pumpkins, this final CPA staff and technical services application. $50,000.
Right. So I really didn't prepare much for that one. Since this is something that
Just say something, Ann.
This is, the CPC is able to spend, I don't even have it in front of me. Is it like 5% of what you, of the earnings each year on administrative support for the commission? And that can range from, legal advice to, staff to membership within the Community Preservation Coalition and any other, administrative pieces like signage or, copying and that sort of thing. So this year was the same as last year's, which was 50,000. And yeah,
yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Am I unmuted? Yes. And I think I say this all the time, but the things that you can expend money on, that list of things is always broader than what you guys do spend money on. And I'm thinking, we might think a little bit more at what that list is of potential things that could be funded this way through CPC. I don't remember the entire list, but you know, technical advice, legal advice, maybe even a survey or something. I don't know. I don't have it right in front of me, but we might think about it. Right now, it only covers basically salaries and maybe printing of signs or something. Is that correct?
Well, and community and membership in the CPC and legal and technical funding.
Yeah, and signs.
Yeah.
But we don't. But
You
we
mentioned
haven't-
signs, so I was just.
but we haven't really sought a lot of legal and technical advice on certain things, right? To my knowledge, we have not. And there might be other things that we might want to do, but I'm just putting my 2 cents in. I think it could be higher because it's not the full percentage that you guys ever asked for.
I wonder, and if the 50,000, the jump to 50,000 from last year, if we found places to spend that money this year. I know there was a question about if we could get a half of an FTE or something, or were we able to
Yes,
spend our 50 grand for staffing?
I don't think we were able to
No.
spend it, no.
Okay, Diane, did you have a question?
No, I just have a comment. My understanding is that we have not always appropriately funded the review of the CPC applications in the legal area, and that this was an effort to try to make sure that each committee that was presenting things to the town had the funding to do that. And is that the case, Anne? Is that what that $10,000 is for? Or $8,500?
Wait, where did that come from?
Well, that was true in the past. If you all remember, the concern was that a lot of that the town was bearing the
Oh, I think that was mostly HDC.
the legal review, and well, the town was bearing the legal review, and the hope was that our committee and other committees would build that in to our spending. At least that's my memory of what that's doing in our in our application, but I could be wrong.
I think this is in the CPC law, right? It's defined what that percentage could be and what it could be used for, right?
Right, and the town often did foot the bill for the legal advice, and there was one year where you know, CPC funds were used to fund the legal advice provided to the CPC. We've brought it up a few times since, and
there's been enough money to do that.
Right. So they
Okay.
haven't utilized it. Mhm.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that when we when we fund these applications, that money does get spent, that it gets spent and used each year. However, I didn't realize that this is a larger big picture question, so I don't expect an answer for today. Because we appreciate you, Anne, and Heather too, wherever she is. I think she's on vacation, which is fantastic. I just have one last thing to talk about with y'all, and that is Anne and I talked today about possibly breaking out into a different session entirely to discuss the amenities building application. Would the folks here be interested in doing that? What do you think about that, as opposed to trying to roll all of our application discussion into the November 4th meeting, or letting it bleed into November 25th, which is the new meeting that's on our calendar? I don't know if anybody wants to talk about this 2 days before Thanksgiving, but and to let me know that I could call a meeting for us either like an hour before our October 28th meeting. We could discuss the amenities building. We could have an hour to talk about it, because I've been inundated with a lot of stuff that I would like to share with the committee. And Anne has been doing a lot of research too, which she could share. It doesn't seem appropriate just to send everything out by email without hearing what you all say. And I'm being asked to meet with the Carlisle CPC chair, and I don't want to do that until I get a chance to deliberate this application with you guys first. So anyway, what do we think about having a special meeting just for amenities building discussion? Diane?
I think it's a prudent idea. And on top of that, I would love Anne did send around a kind of, are you free at these particular times? So I think if we all respond to that, it would be helpful. I
Okay,
think it's important. I mean, I'm getting lots of questions from people, and so I think it would be prudent for us to be as well informed as possible.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of political pressure around this from various quarters. Some more than others.
yeah, we're not supposed to be deliberating it outside of these recorded meetings, so I want to give us a forum to deliberate in a
Absolutely,
recorded meeting.
We're not deliberating them. We're just getting emails and
No.
I
comments.
know, me too.
Okay. All right. Just so,
I
just so you
know.
know, we've
I
been
think
very,
he's talking about the need to have a formal
yeah,
CPC meeting,
absolutely.
so
I think
that
it's,
we're not in that position.
I think that's prudent, Eve, and wise. So,
The only thing I want to say, though, I want to jump in. I just would say we have to be careful about making a decision about that out of context with the other decisions, because money's going to run out. So we have to know how this fits into our overall orientation of all the funds. In other words, we can't decide we're going to completely do that and then find ourselves wishing later we did something else. So
Oh,
you didn't mean, Eve, you didn't mean making a decision about it, did you?
No, but
I think another opportunity review, Bill, is all I think she was arguing.
with people from the outside or just among us?
Just
well,
us.
no, I
Just
think we
us,
have
right?
to have, I think we have to have a public meeting. We don't have to take public comment on
Oh,
our
no, I mean, but the school committee is not coming in to speak to us again about it, right?
I hadn't even thought about that, but if you want them to, we could ask them to come again.
No, I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
Okay. We could even like have our November 4th meeting start an hour earlier. I just don't think, I'm feeling a lot of pressure that we're not going to be able to discuss or give like due diligence to the other applicants if we try to tackle the amenities building on the same day as the, 14, 15 other projects we've got to talk about. Diane?
Well, I'd say I like the idea of extending one of our meeting times to give it the time so that we can move right from that into the discussion of others, but that's my opinion. I don't.
Okay.
I didn't think she meant a deliberation as much as, I mean, determination, Bill, as much as a deliberation, because I think there's more to be discussed. And so
there's a lot of stuff happening.
That's what I understood. Maybe I misunderstood.
Exactly.
So are these new? Are we talking about new information, or are we talking about rehashing what was in the application?
Both.
Both. New information.
Yep.
And what about other people, other applicants who have new information? We would also accommodate them.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yes. When we were on the site visits, we got a lot of new information about the Concord Museum, and we haven't even gotten their presentation yet. So I'm hoping that by the time October 28th comes around, they have a completely different presentation than what their application is showing right now. Do you remember our site visit with the Concord Museum and their windows? Anyway, so of course, if somebody is going to, download a whole lot of other information, we would discuss that as well. But the only one I know that is bombarding some of us with lots of extra information is the amenities building project.
But is that just individual, like people emailing you, trying to get some influence, or is it specific?
No, it's like, for example, I've been asked to have a meeting with the town manager and FinCom of both Concord and Carlisle to discuss a collaboration with Carlisle on the joint application of this. It's one of the first times that we've had a joint application. And I don't want to do that without talking to the committee to see how people feel about this application. I don't want to go present the committee when I
town
heard
council
from the committee.
Or town council for that matter.
We have talked to, here's some new information. We have talked to town council, and town council has told us that this application, it fits within our regs. So like, this is the kind of stuff, I don't want to do it now. I just want time to do it,
Sure.
Yeah. Paul?
Yeah, just very quickly, one of the apparent linchpins on that project is sewer connections. And so if you're going to have a separate meeting, which I think is a good idea, I would have Alan Cathcart speak at that meeting, or the Public Works Commission, or both. Because I mean, a letter of support or not is one thing, but that's kind of a key issue. So it's up to you, but that's an important piece of information. Maybe you get that beforehand, Eve, but hearing from Alan on this would be, I think, very prudent.
That's exactly right.
Good idea.
Yeah, Diane was asking a lot about the sewers on our site visit too. So, and Jeff,
Yeah.
do you want to chime in here?
Thanks, Eve. So just a newbie question to understand how these November meetings fit in with our deliberations. What is the arc of our annual process? When do we actually get to brass tacks and make decisions internally?
It's funny that you asked that question, because on our website, there's a document called the Community Preservation Committee Working Year, which I have on my list of things to do to go over with Anne. I don't think it's entirely correct here, but what it says that our warrant article is due in January, so we need to vote in December on what we're putting forth in the town meeting. Yeah, what we're recommending. As we all know, we have more applications than we have funding. We don't even know how much funding we have, although I learned at Thursday's CP Coalition meeting that we're going to get a 16% match this year instead of 18% match from the state. So we'll have less money than we had last year, actually, probably. And so we only have right now, we only had one meeting in November. Our schedule was to meet again on October 28th to discuss, I think it's like 4 or 5 more applications, or hear more presentations. And then just the presentations, and then to have a discussion on November 4th, and then to vote on December 2nd. I just don't think that's enough time. So I asked Anne to put November 25th just to hold another meeting place, but I don't really want to meet on November 25th. We could just let it spill over to November 25th. I just feel like peeling the discussion, not the voting, but the discussion, because we don't vote until December. We could peel the discussion of the amenities building off and talk about dealing with, our role with Carlisle and how much they're, putting in, and what happened this spring with how now we're being asked for twice as much money than in winter, and the plumbing and all of these other things that we're getting questions about. If we could talk about that before we have to vote, but also before we tackle 14 other projects, the discussion of 14 other projects. Last year we had 7 projects. So this is a kind of a big jump in the amount of work we have to do. Anyway, that was my thought. You can all respond to Anne on email, and that's fine too. And maybe we won't, maybe we'll just try to do the best we can with the time we've got. Okay, all right, so that's it. Linda, do you want to add anything to our discussion or just now about the amenities building, or do you want to talk about the presentations that we've heard, or do you just want to go to bed like me?
As always, I think you're doing a terrific job and asking some really good questions, so thank you.
Oh, thank you, Linda. Okay, everybody, I'll see you in 2 weeks, if not sooner. Bye.